Well, look, it is really a pleasure and honor to be here. I have to recognize the chairman of the Republican Party here in Palm Beach County, Sid Dinerstein. And his friend Larry Shea, who's running for county commission, right? Absolutely. And anyone else here that I missed? Fran Hancock. Okay, Fran Hancock, our state committee woman. Lowell, what are you running for now? School board. Lowell's running for school board. Stand up. Tell them.
Mary Lynn Hagar. And
we need to get behind her. She's running for a state senate?
House.
State house. State house. Replacing Mr. Snyder. Bill Snyder up there. I can't see that far.
Laura Hanley back here.
There you go.
Laura Hanley.
All right, so we're all gathered together, and please, we have to get behind the candidates because elections are important at the local level as well. To make sure that we have the right people at school board, make sure we have the right people in our city councils, our county commissioners, and also in our state house and state senates. Because what I want to talk to you about tonight is very simple. And the reason why my wife is here is to make sure I don't mess this up. There are two very clear visions for the United States of America. And the concern is that when I hear people start to talk about, middle class, and I hear people start to talk about fairness, when I hear people talking about economic equality and fair share, there is a contingent of people here in the United States that don't really understand the essence of who we are, and the essence of what makes us great, and what makes us exceptional as a nation and as a people. And I want to tell you my personal story. Earlier today I had the opportunity to go over to the Breakers and speak to the West Palm Beach Rotary Club. And some of you know what I'm about to talk about, but others have not heard this. But I will be 51 years of age on the 7th of February, 1961. Gary and I share the same birthday and same year. 51 years ago, Allen West would not have been able to stand in the Breakers. Allen West would not have been able to go to the Breakers other than maybe to work there or take care of the lawn or things of that nature. Allen West would not have been able to go on Palm Beach Island other than to work in someone's home. But the greatness and exceptionalism of America is that someone born in 1961 in the inner city of Atlanta, Georgia, can now be the congressional representative of a place that is the per capita income highest zip code in the United States of America. Now, if that is not a testimony to the greatness of America, if that is not a testimony to who we are as conservatives, if that is not a testimony as to who we are as conservatives, who we are as a Republican Party, because we don't believe in equal achievement. We don't believe that someone outside entity will come in and engineer outcomes and results for people. What we believe is that every single person in the United States of America has the equal opportunity to succeed. When I think about my wife's father, who came from Jamaica to the United States of America, and he joined the United States Army because someone told him he could go and get a free haircut. But now that Jamaican family has a daughter with a PhD, has a son that's a doctor, a son that's a lawyer, another son that's an extremely successful business entrepreneur. That's America. And we are on the crux of potentially losing that dream for the future and the legacy of our children and grandchildren if we don't take a stand. You got between now and the 6th of November. From tomorrow, you have 11 months to be prepared to make a decision which will determine the direction of this country for at least the next 30, 40, maybe even 50 years from now. Because the vision of people such as President Barack Hussein Obama is not the vision of our founding fathers. It is not the vision of our constitutional republic. And what does it mean to be a constitutional republic? First of all, it means respect for the rule of law. And when you consider what just happened recently with these quote-unquote recess appointments, that shows that you have a person that does not believe in the rule of law in our country. When you understand what it means to live in a republic, it is the preeminence of the rights of the individual. It is not about the preeminence of a collective. It is not about grouping Americans together in respective groups and pitting them against each other to divide us and conquer us for your own political gain. But that's exactly what's going to happen in this year. Now, when you sit and look at each and every one that is gathered here today, what I want you to understand is that you are not the faces, you are not the people that will determine what happens in this election in November of 2012. The challenge for each and every one of you here today is to talk to 5 people that do not believe as you do. And out of those 5 people, you must somehow be able to convince 3 of them, 60%, that limited government that's constitutionally mandated and fiscally responsible, that individual rights and freedoms, individual responsibility and accountability, our free market and free enterprise system, our traditional cultural values, our strong national defense are the foundational principles of these great United States of America. You've got to get people to understand that creating more victims is not the way that we will strengthen this great nation. We don't need to see another 41% of Americans going on food stamps. We don't need to see another 6.4 million Americans on the poverty rolls. We live in America right now where almost 50% of our nation is on some form of government aid. We live in a nation where 47% of wage-earning households do not pay federal income taxes. We live in a country where only 1/2 of the ship is rowing the boat. And that means that we're not going anywhere anytime fast. But that's the vision that the other side wants to promote. And we have to have individuals at all levels of government. We have to have individuals that, as we said, to understand Republican principles. And we can't run away from them. The problem with the Republican Party too often is that every time when an election comes around, we try to run away from our principles. We try to do things that make other people say, well, we can like them. The beauty of Ronald Reagan was that he planted his feet and he said, this is who I am and this is what I believe in. And the American people rallied to him. Not about Republicans, not about Democrats, not about independents, not about lower income, middle income, upper income. Americans rallied because what they saw in him was the embodiment of what America was. Strength, resolve, commitment, courage, competence, character. And his voice was a resounding voice that made everyone sleep a little bit better at night and believe that he was someone that would stand and be a visionary leader for this great nation. That's what this country is looking for. And we cannot shy away from showing that to the rest of not just the United States of America, but to the world. When you think about the ramifications of this year's election, it's not just for this nation, but it is for the world. And let me tell you about what the world needs to see. On the 31st of January, I believe Florida will play an incredible role in the Republican presidential primary. And all eyes will be on us. What will they see? In August, the Republican convention comes to Florida and Tampa. And what will they see? And on the 22nd of October, the final presidential debate will occur right here in Palm Beach County, in Boca Raton, at Lynn University. What will America, what will the world see? They need to see men and women that are committed to the principles and values that can restore this republic, that can recommit us to the Constitution, and can reclaim our American pride. The contrast is so clear. What we have to be able to do is talk to the people that aren't here in this room and get them to understand that contrast. That means you have to talk to your employees if you're a business owner. That means when you go to the gas station and you go inside the gas station, you got to talk to the gas station attendant. That means if you have people that come and do your lawns for you, you got to talk to the people that are doing that lawn service. Let them know what is happening to small business owners. Let them know that more and more Americans are going to suffer a year from now if the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act kicks in with 159 new government agencies and bureaucracies, 11 new taxes, 16,000 new IRS agents, $500 billion of cuts to Medicare, and a 15-member board of unelected bureaucrats that will decide the price controls of Medicare. That's what kicks in a year from now. You got to talk to them about the effects that Dodd-Frank is having on our small community banks and their inability to be able to lend to our small business owners so that we can get these closed storefronts open back up again. Because if not, it goes too far down the road. You got to talk to people about our national security. How many of you know what's going to happen next week in Latin America? The president of Iran is going to be doing a Latin American tour. He's going to be going through South America, and he's going to come up through Central America. He's going to go attend the inauguration of Daniel Ortega in Nicaragua. This is what is happening so close to our country. And it's the exact same Iran that not too long ago we found out that they were working with Mexican drug cartels for an assassination attempt on the Saudi ambassador and the American ambassador from Israel. But yet, I got to go and talk about national security tonight with Greta because all of a sudden the president has decided we're going to reform our military and, well, you know what? We just don't need to worry about having to fight a second war if it ever happens. The president doesn't understand that the enemy has a vote. And you can't just run away, like unfortunately we've done in Iraq. And somehow we have found a means by which we can still defeat from the jaws of victory. This is the determining election cycle. And as I tell everyone, the challenge to you all is very simple. Are you going to be the first generation that will leave less to your children and grandchildren than was left for you? See, I'm here today because of grandparents and parents that stood mighty and stood strong. You know, my father grew up in South Georgia. When he took off for World War II, the rights and freedoms that he was fighting for, many of them were not afforded to him. But yet he believed in this great nation. So I'm not going to let down that legacy that they passed on to me. And I want to make sure that I pass it on to my two daughters and subsequently possibly to my grandchildren. That's the part of our DNA that is challenged. $15 trillion in debt. $48,000 is the amount that every single man, woman, and child in the United States of America will have to pay to eradicate the debt that we have. 3 straight years of $1 trillion plus deficits, and we're working on the 4th year right now. A debt that is owned 28% by China. A debt to GDP ratio that's at 101%. But if you add in the unfunded mandates, our debt to GDP ratio is almost the same as Greece. This is an economic calamity that we are facing. And if you think that we can afford another 4 years of President Obama in the White House, we cannot. So some people have come up to me and said, maybe perhaps we should focus on expanding the majority in the House and winning back the Senate. I think that you now know that the president has no concern for Congress. As a matter of fact, today, the Wall Street Journal wrote an article that was called Contempt for Congress. We have not seen anything like this probably since King George III. But this is what is coming out of the White House. We have to win the White House. Now, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for in the primary coming up, but I'm going to tell you this. When the decision is made for who the nominee is, ruck up and get behind it. Because the alternative is hard. But what you do need to do, no matter who you are supporting, you need to talk to them and tell them this. We need to show maturity. We need to stop this infighting and all these gimmicks because we're embarrassing ourselves. We need to tell them that they must be able to articulate our values and our principles, that they must be able to present an image of America, that they must be able to show a contrast between who they are and what they represent, and who President Obama is and what he represents. And they must have titanium in their spine to be able to stand and endure. This election is not going to be about policy. This election is not going to be about the record coming out of this administration. This is going to be a bloodbath. This is going to be going into the arena in Rome, and you got to understand that you have to walk out. You may get dirty, you may get bloody, but you have to walk out the victor. Because the thing that is at stake is the soul of this country. Elections have consequences. The election of 2008 had a major consequence. We cannot afford the election of 2012 to have even graver consequences. Let me close by talking about me. Every day that I wake up, it is such a privilege and honor to be able to represent each and every one of you. And I don't know what this Save Allen West is thing, but I really don't care what ends up coming out of Tallahassee. Now, I don't want them to screw me over. But the thing is this, I will fight to ensure that I return to Washington, D.C. to be your congressional representative. That's the most important thing, because you must have individuals that are willing to stand up on principle and fight for you and not be deterred because people want to call you names and people want to try to say things to get you off track. The reason why I am the #1 target for the Democratic Party is because my mere existence invalidates everything that they believe in and everything they have stood for, and it evidences the failures of liberal social welfare policies and programs, and they cannot stand to have a strong black conservative former military voice that stands against them. You guys just pray. God will take care of the rest. But understand this. From tomorrow, 11 months. And then it happens. Sid, we got to have that game plan.
10 months.
Oh, 10 months.
Just got closer.
Sid, we got to have the game plan. The Republican Party of North Palm Beaches, you got to execute that game plan. We have got to have a better ground game than they have. They beat us to death on the ground in 2008. We cannot allow that to happen. Florida is an important state. SEIU will be here. The teachers' unions will be here. Everyone, Acorn, you name it, they're going to be here. And what we have to do is beat them to the punch. We got to show folks that the bureaucratic nanny state is not the way ahead for the United States of America. And the other thing I want each and every one of you to do, the next time I come here to speak to this group, if you have a child or grandchild that's 18 years or older that will be voting in November, I want them here for me to talk to them. I can't stress how important it is. But I further cannot stress how honored Angela and I, as well as Aubrey and Austin, are to be the family that represents you all up in Washington, D.C. So with that being said, what are your questions?